Discursive passages. In this module, you will learn to comprehend discursive passages and answer questions based on them. It is Ria's birthday next week. Her parents ask her what she wants as her birthday present. Ria asks for a mobile phone, but her parents do not like the idea. They put forward many points for not allowing their daughter to have a mobile phone at this age. Let's listen to what they said to Ria.
We cannot let you have a cell phone for the prevalence of bullying. There are many posts online that can be tormenting for you. Also, we would never want you to post any such thing knowingly or unknowingly that can bully others.
Cell phones are highly addictive. Children spend their time in texting messages to their friends for useless conversations, forwarding useless texts, playing games or surfing the internet. And due to this, they ignore their studies.
Moreover, you don't have much idea about the calling rates, tariff, and internet charges. You might spend a lot of money on mobiles, and that would result in an additional and unnecessary expense on us.
Suppose you forget to silence your phone and it rings in the middle of your class. Then it would distract not just you, but also the tutor and the other students.
And at times, if you keep your phone silenced or set to vibration only mode, you will be distracted if someone calls you in during your studies.
But Ria too had her points about the benefits of having a cell phone. Let's now listen to what Ria said to her parents. But Papa, it will prove to be an innovative way of learning for me through my learning resources like mobile dictionaries, encyclopedia, and educational applications. I can regularly update these applications to easily get in touch with new information. They are a lot more beneficial than the textbooks that remain stagnant over time. I can even use it for doing homework and preparing presentations. Also, cell phones have a built-in web browser, so I can have an instant access to the internet. I will not have to rely on a PC or laptop all the time. And do you know, there is also a built-in GPS in cell phones, so whenever I'm away from home, you can easily track my location. And Mom, it often happens that I have an extra class at the coaching center and get late to return home. You get so much worried about my safety then. If I will have a cell phone, I can easily inform you through a text or call. In case of any emergency too, I can inform you immediately. There are times when I have to go to some places on my own and it gets difficult to find any conveyance to get back home. If I have a cell phone, then I can easily book a cab or auto online. And with the navigation feature, you can track my journey until I arrive home safely. On listening to their daughter's convincing reasons, they agreed to buy a cell phone for her on her birthday. Ria in return promised them not to spend too much time on the phone and use it with safety and care. Such texts are called discursive texts. Let's learn about discursive texts in detail. A discursive text is a piece of writing which discusses an issue, problem, solution, or any topic by using reasons, justifications, and supporting details. It thoroughly investigates a topic by investigating the different perspectives. Discursive texts usually compare or contrast two or more things, present a problem and suggest a solution, or present arguments for or against an action. Let us now understand the features of discursive texts. These texts are always written in a formal tone with proper complete sentences and proper expressions. Use of contractions and abbreviations is avoided. These texts are always written in third-person perspective. Use of first-person phrases such as "in my opinion," "I believe," and "I fully support" should be avoided. Another important feature is the objectivity of these texts. They are written in an unbiased manner with thorough discussion on the major points of argument. These texts always start with a sound introduction that clearly states the topic. The paragraphs in discursive texts are organized in a logical manner. Discursive texts are usually written in two forms: argumentative texts, persuasive texts. What do you understand by the word argument? It is a reason why we support or oppose any idea or suggestion. So, an argumentative text is a style of writing which presents both sides of a topic, discussing points in favor as well as against the topic. All the points discussed are supported by reasons, facts, examples, or justifications. Let us read a passage about the advantages and disadvantages of watching television. How does television affect our lives? According to some people, television is the root of all evil. Others think of it as a very useful medium of information and entertainment. Those who favor television claim that it is an easy and cheap source of entertainment in today's busy and expensive life. It can also prove to be really helpful for people who carefully choose what to watch on it. For example, international news channels keep us informed about the happenings around the world. Some shows and channels offer educational programs that can increase our knowledge. Television also helps us feel less lonely. Researchers have often found that people who habitually watch their favorite TV shows report feeling less lonely during the shows. Also, if a certain TV show makes us laugh, it adds to our health improvement. On the other hand, there are several disadvantages of television. Even if people have work to do, they do it all with the TV on. Also, the crime and violence depicted on television may have negative effects on children and adults. Watching too much television is harmful for our health too. People who watch TV for longer hours, sitting inactive at one place, are prone to obesity. Excessive TV watching also creates room for sleep difficulties, behavior problems, lower grades, and other health issues. Another major issue is that television often causes people to become dissatisfied with their own lives. Real life does not seem as exciting to these people as the lives of actors on the screen. Everything has a good side as well as a bad side, and television is no exception. So, with little bit of care and caution, we can reduce the negative effects of television. This is an argumentative passage as it discusses both advantages and disadvantages of watching television. Here the author has supported all arguments with reasons and justifications. Now let's know about persuasive texts. What do you understand by the word persuasive? It has been derived from the root word persuade, which means to make someone do or believe something by giving a good reason for it. So, a persuasive text is a style of writing where the author's personal opinion about a topic is written in an indirect way. The opinions are always supported by suitable reasons, facts, examples, or justifications. Let us read a passage. Our circumstances and conditions are not dictated by the world outside. It is the world inside us that creates the outside. To make our life a meaningful one, we need to mind our thoughts, for our thoughts are the foundation, the inspiration, and the motivating power of our deeds. We create our entire world by the way we think. Thoughts are the causes and the conditions are the effects. Thought or intent is more responsible and dynamic than an act. One may perform a charitable act, but if one does not think charitably and is doing the act just for the sake of gain and glory, it is our thoughts that will determine the result. Theosophy teaches us that every thought, no matter what it is, leaves a seed in the mind of the thinker. These small thoughts together make up one large thought seed and determine one's general character. Every thought we think, every act we perform creates in us an impression, and like everything else is subject to cyclic law and becomes repetitive in our mind. So we alone have the choice to create our thoughts and develop the kind of impression that makes our actions more positive. Everything in the universe is interrelated and interdependent. So we should reflect and send loving and helpful thoughts and lighten the load of the world's suffering. Here the author is trying to persuade the readers that we create the world with our own thoughts. One's thoughts not only determine his or her character, but also affect the outside world. So, it is a persuasive text. Now let's discuss discursive passages from examination point of view. How to answer the comprehension questions based on a discursive passage. Let us understand this through a sample discursive passage. Conversation is indeed the most easily teachable of all arts. All you need to do in order to become a good conversationalist is to find a subject that interests you and your listeners. But the important thing to remember is that you must not hurt your listeners' feelings. It is just as important to know what subjects to avoid as knowing what subjects to select for a good conversation. If you don't want to be set down as a bore, be careful to avoid topics related to yourself. People are interested in their own problems, not in yours. To be a good conversationalist, you must know not only what to say, but also how to say it. Be civil and modest. Don't overemphasize your own patience. Be mentally quick and witty. Finally, try to avoid mannerisms in your conversation, as the listener may not like your peculiar habit or speech. Let us now read the questions to be answered. What does one need to know to be a good conversationalist? What should you do to be a good conversationalist and not to be set down as a bore? Why should a good conversationalist avoid taking up topics about himself in his conversation? Why should a conversationalist avoid mannerisms? To answer the questions, first we need to understand the overview of this passage. This can be done by skimming the passage. We read a text quickly without reading everything with the same attention. We generally read the first and last sentence of the text to gather its main idea and read the passage by noticing the content words. Let's skim the passage now. After skimming, we get an overview that this passage tells how to be a good conversationalist. It also tells about the things to be avoided by a good conversationalist. But how do we answer the questions based on this passage? For this, we need to scan the passage. Scanning helps us to identify a specific piece of information as required in the question. While scanning, we read a text quickly with specific aims and look for keywords. Now, the first question is, what does one need to know to be a good conversationalist? This question talks about the qualities of being a good conversationalist. Let us try to locate the qualities of a good conversationalist in the passage. We can find it in the first paragraph. All you need to do in order to become a good conversationalist is to find a subject that interests you and your listeners. But the important thing to remember is that you must not hurt your listeners' feelings. This gives us our required answer. What does one need to know to be a good conversationalist? To be a good conversationalist, you should be able to find a subject that interests you and your listeners. It should also be remembered not to hurt your listeners' feelings. Now let's move on to the second question. What should you do to be a good conversationalist and not to be set down as a bore? This question asks the qualities of a good conversationalist that prevent him from being set down as a bore. Let us try to locate such qualities in the passage. We can find it in the second paragraph. It is just as important to know what subjects to avoid as knowing what subjects to select for a good conversation. If you don't want to be set down as a bore, be careful to avoid topics related to yourself. This can be rephrased to get the required answer. What should you do to be a good conversationalist and not to be set down as a bore? To be a good conversationalist and not to be set down as a bore, you must know what subjects to avoid and what subjects to select for a good conversation. Also, avoid talking about yourself. The third question is, why should a good conversationalist avoid taking up topics about himself in his conversation? This question asks the reason to avoid talking about himself by a good conversationalist. In the answer of the previous question, we mentioned that a good conversationalist should avoid talking about himself. Now, let's read further to know the reason for this. If you don't want to be set down as a bore, be careful to avoid topics related to yourself. People are interested in their own problems, not in yours. This gives us the reason that we require to answer the question, why should a good conversationalist avoid taking up topics about himself in his conversation? A good conversationalist must avoid talking about himself in his conversation because people are not interested in his problems. They are rather interested in talking about their own problems. The last question is, why should a conversationalist avoid mannerisms? This question asks the reasons of avoiding mannerisms by a good conversationalist. Mannerism means a habitual gesture or way of speaking or behaving. So we need to locate the reasons that why a conversationalist shouldn't speak in a habitual gesture. Let's try to locate the reason in the passage. We find the reason in the very last sentence. Finally, try to avoid mannerisms in your conversation as the listener may not like your peculiar habit or speech. So we can answer the given question. Why should a conversationalist avoid mannerisms? Mannerism or a habitual gesture or way of speaking or behaving should be avoided by a conversationalist as the listeners may not like the conversationalist's peculiar habit or speech. Now, can you tell the steps we have followed to comprehend the passage and answer the questions based on it? Skim the passage to understand its overview or main idea. Read the questions and identify what each question asks. Scan the text to locate the required information. Rephrase the related text given in the passage and answer the questions based on your understanding. Let's practice. Read the following discursive passage and answer the questions that follow. Let's recap. A discursive text is a piece of writing which discusses any topic by using reasons, justifications, and supporting details. Discursive texts usually compare or contrast two or more things, present a problem and suggest a solution, or present arguments for or against an action. Formal tone, third-person perspective, and objectivity are some features of discursive texts. Argumentative and persuasive texts are the common forms of discursive texts. An argumentative text presents both sides of a topic, discussing points in favor as well as against the topic. In a persuasive text, the author's personal opinion about a topic is written in an indirect way. To answer the questions based on a text, we skim the passage to understand its overview or main idea. Read the questions and identify what each question asks. Scan the text to locate the required information. Rephrase the related text given in the passage and answer the questions based on your understanding.